Hello YouTubers, Stevie here. Sorry it's been so long since I've done a video. Crazy year. But I'm back up here on the North Fork Wolf Creek shooting range, number 2. Specifically this lane because I'm only doing pistol today, and they recently refurbished this, and I kind of wanted to try it out before it got trashed again. I don't think, hopefully it won't get trashed. And as Paul Hurl would say, please forgive any gunfire you hear in the background because we are, of course, at the range. So today is a kind of a special day in the sense that I'm firing for the first time my brand new XDm 4.5 in 10mm, and the obligatory safety check, no magazine, nothing in the chamber. The other cool thing about this XDm is actually I purchased this on the 2-year anniversary of buying my very, very, very first handgun, which also happens to be an XDM. And once again, look for safety check, nothing in the chamber. This one happens to be chambered in 45 ACP. Like I said, my very first gun, handgun, I should say, and just obviously you can probably see by how the wear and tear on the guide rod that I've actually shot this quite a bit, and I love it. I mean, I really can't say anything bad about this gun. Really, I can't. Breaks down, super simple. Just move that breakdown lever up, release, and off it comes. Guide rod, barrel, you're done. No need to pull the trigger if you're squirmish about that sort of thing. So anyways, and what we're going to do later on, I'm going to do a comparison shooting the 10mm and then this back to back, so you can kind of see if it's kind of the recoil. For now, first shots, very first shots, I'm going to shoot on paper. I measured it out, we're at exactly 15 yards. So we'll see. I'm sure this thing's accurate for farther distances than that, but this will do for now. We're using, for this initial tryout, probably the best practice ammo I can find in terms of being consistent and up to, spec in terms of SAMI. The spec is actually 200 grains at 1200 feet per second. This is 180 at 1250. So a little smaller, a little lighter, a little faster. Alright, so without further ado, load up one of the 2 magazines that came with it, and let's do it. That shoots super sweet. I mean, probably wouldn't want to shoot this all day, but it's not bad. Check that target. I'm sure I'm pulled to the left. We'll go ahead and fly in a close-up of that initial shooting target. I can already see from now that I was pulling to the left a lot. I'll do that now. Okay, we're going to give that another shot. As you saw from the photo I just flew in, I definitely started out low and left like I usually do. I did get something kind of close to the bullseye. We're going to try just one more time on the paper target below it and see if we can improve on that. I don't know. I'm probably going to have to spend more time, obviously, with this weapon, my trigger technique. But we'll see. I'm not going to spend a lot of time shooting on paper today just because I have steel out there, and that's just so much more fun to shoot on. Alright, let's do this. 15 shots. Looks like I can see from now I've got some down low and left, but I got some fairly centered as well. So take your time, make sure you don't have your finger too far over. I keep forgetting on this XDM triggers in particular, you really got to pull back from the pad. If you're pulling back from the hook, it's going to pull a long time. Anyways, let's go take a look. I've put away the paper target. I'm just going to shoot on steel, just because I don't want to have to think so much about you know, getting it dead on center and then having that look at that target afterwards when I know I didn't. As long as I hit the steel plate, which is also out at 15 yards, you know, I'll consider myself you know, fortunate. So right now we're going to move on to the comparison test. At this point we're going to shoot back to back the 10 millimeter and then the 45 ACP. I guess I will start. We'll start with the 45 ACP, then we'll go to the 10 millimeter. So right now, 13 shots to the XDM 4.5 and 45 ACP. And now 15 shots from the XDM 4.5 and 10 millimeter. ACP had more of a kick, you know, report to it. I've always had this theory, you know, the 45 ACP being probably substantially larger, but the fact that it's slower velocity, even though these are actually, when I'm using in the 45 ACP are Underwood full metal jackets. These are a plus P at 1,000 feet per second. So I guess I'm not surprised they have much more of a kick to them than a normal 45. So I don't know, I might be doing apples and oranges here. Hard to say. But, okay, well anyways, so we're going to do the comparison again, because it doesn't look like I actually fired all 13 rounds. I don't know what happened there. I guess I must have thought it was done. But anyways, we're going to do the comparison again. Once again, keep in mind, I'm using a plus P, and Underwood, if you're not familiar with Underwood ammo, they're pretty, they do load pretty stout, even on their, you know, normal SAMI spec. So when they do plus P, you know they're pushing the limit. But, you know, here again, I thought this would be the most, you know, comparable out of this weapon, you know, to a also fairly, you know, consistently hot, or at least more like a official spec load from the 10 millimeter. So anyways, here we go again. We're going to try the 45 ACPs once more. Make sure that magazine is nice and taut. Alright, 45 ACP out of the XDM 4.5. That one did clear. You know, I'm just going to shoot the rest of the ones that were in this one because I did shoot them before. That's that. Alright, now we're going to the XDM 4.5. Those sting, by the way. Those plus P's out of that thing. Okay, so XDM 4.5 and 10 millimeter with the 6 hour standard full metal jacket, 180 grains, 1250 feet per second. Yeah, no, I mean, there's no doubt that 45 has more kick. It could be just because they are, like I said, a plus P load. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some my standard Federal Champion stuff, which is, you know, probably mid to on the weaker side for a. They're 230 grains, so they are full size. But we'll run a comparison between those two and see where we're at. Okay, so we're going to try this. Standard practice one, which is a you know, Federal Champion, you know, brass. This is rated at 830 feet per second out of the muzzle, so this is notably less than the Underwood. And Federal tends to be under what they advertise, so this is going to be pretty manageable comparatively speaking. But you know, we'll see how it compares. Still using the 6-hour Elite for the 10. So, once again, we're going to start with the XDm 4.5 and 45 ACP. Cleared. Definitely less kick. All right, now the XDm 4.5 and 10 millimeter. All right, so kind of as I expected, the 45 was far less kick to it, but you know, like I said, that's a notoriously, you know, underpowered round I was using. But they're actually closer now. I think the 10 millimeter was kicking just a bit more, but if I was using, you know, something like a Celery or heater or the MagTech would be more comparable. Matter of fact, you know, let's go ahead and run this comparison again, and I'm going to pick the MagTech because I think that's going to be more consistent than the heaters, and we'll do the comparison again. It'll be weak load versus weak load this time. Alright, we're going to try this back-to-back comparison again. We're going to stick with the Federal 45 ACP and 30 feet per second, but we've switched to the MagTech for the 10 millimeter. It's Brazilian made, fairly consistent. Doesn't say on the box what the velocity is, but I think, you know, they rated at 1147 to 1163, some odd number in that range. I know they're underpowered compared to the 6 hour, so this should be really as close to an apple and apple comparison. So once again, we're going to start with the 45 ACP and the XDm 4.5. Clear. Right. And now for the MagTech, kind of underpowered, still 180 grain in the XDm 4.5 and 10 millimeter. know, every ammo has a slight different point of impact versus point of aim, and I'm getting used to this gun, so no excuses, I suck, but that was just kind of why I didn't really hit that very often. Much more familiar, obviously, with the 45 ACP. Comparatively speaking, I would say 10mm, even with a weaker round, still it's got more oomph to it than the 45 ACP. But something about the 45 ACP just being slower, it just seems more dramatic. But anyways, you'll see in the video just as I have, and yes, there is definitely more oomph to the 10mm. Alright, so I think that wraps up any kind of comparison thing, and let's get on to shooting some really fun loads out of the 10mm. Okay, so we're going. Just on a side note, I had somebody just stop by. They were part of the Northwest Firearms blog, which definitely associated with the Wolf Creek lanes. And he was just driving up this road that basically runs the back end of each of the 4 lanes. And he didn't say exactly where he was, but apparently a bullet, a 9mm projectile from it was one of those Wolf, or it was a steel projectile, probably out of a steel casing. It's cheap, obviously. Anyways, it comes in through his window and lands on his lap. And I'm unfortunate that's the only thing that happened. So obviously it wasn't traveling at very much velocity, which makes me think it's some idiots over on the other side of the valley shooting someplace they're not supposed to. But that's just, you know, between the trashing of the facility, especially the nice ones like this, you know, when I mean trashing, I mean literally trash. You know, people shoot at things and then don't pack them out. That's bad enough. But when you got people basically behaving recklessly in the forests as they're shooting, that's just bad for all of us. So don't do that. All right, you know where you're shooting. You're responsible for every bullet you fire out of your gun. So, and whatever jackhole fired that gun is responsible for it landing inside their truck. Fortunately, nothing happened, but that would have been bad. All right. So, anyways. Back to the task at hand. We're going to try some interesting, I guess, specific purpose ammo for the 10mm. We're going to start out with the Underwood load, so we know it's going to be nice and hot. This one is the Extreme Defender, and if you're not familiar, these are a solid copper projectile. This one has got the smaller projectile head and the deeper cutouts. This one's designed to not penetrate as deep. This would be what you would carry, you know, for defensive round. This concealed carry or in-house, something that's going to be effective. Go through barriers. It's fairly barrier blind, but hopefully not over penetrate. This though is rated at, this is going to be 115 grain, so that's like nearly half of what the specification is, and I'll be traveling at 1,700 feet per second. That's at least what it's rated at, and I know the Underwood is pretty accurate on their rating, so it should be interesting to see how this fires out of the gun. Once again, not trying to make excuses, but new gun, and I have yet to get used to the point of aim on this. But these projectiles, since they travel faster and are lighter, tend to shoot higher. So we're going to kind of try out that assumption and shoot below where we're thinking point of aim is. But I'm just basically saying I'm going to miss that steel probably more often than not, if not completely. But we're just trying to see how this cycles and what the recoil looks like. And since it is a carry round, I've gone 15 plus on this one. So there's one chambered already, and then 15 in the mag. Okay, so yeah, the kick wasn't so bad. I mean, it was about the same as the 6 hour full metal jacket. Maybe just a little easier. I'm glad. I mean, this just be something that I would use in this gun for home defense, as well as if I ever conceal carry this, which I have concealed carried the 145 ACP before. It's impacts are actually a little bit lighter than a full-size Glock, so oddly enough, even though they're slightly bigger in some ways. But I also notice the point of impact was pretty close to point of aim, so that's also good news. All right, well, we're going to move on to something a little bit even beefier than this. Well, at least heavier grain. All right, so we're going to move things up a little bit in at least numbers. I wanted to try a hollow point just because that would be definitely a more standard self-defense, home defense sort of round. I would prefer to have found a Hornady, but my usual places didn't have any there. I know there's one place I could have probably found some, but I didn't really want to buy from them. But I did find this at Sportsman's Warehouse. It's Grizzly. I've seen this there. Never bought any of it. I probably would have. I realized it was made in Rainier, Oregon, so it's fairly local. Made here in Oregon. And it's a 250 feet per second, 200 grain. Looks to me to be a solid copper projectile, which would, but you know, obviously at that weight, it's got to have something else in there. It'd be interesting to do a ballistics on this, ballistic gel, just to see, you know, expansion, what it does. But for shooting on steel, I'm sure it'll do just fine. Same thing, concerned about point of impact versus point of aim. But we'll find out. And so, once again, we are going to go 15 plus 1. So I've already got one chambered. Just put 15 round magazine in. So 16 shots on steel. Let's see how this works. After stealing the last shot there. Some games seem to be lower, which for a heavier projectile makes sense. But I can't say for sure if those were consistently. That's another problem you run into with you know, smaller batch, smaller company loads. They don't necessarily fly through. I can't say that with any authority because I'm new with this gun, so it's more likely, just as likely me than it is a bullet. As far as reports, yeah. Those are stout. I frankly would probably prefer to stick with the Extreme Defenders just because it seemed like the point of aim, point of impact was more accurate or consistent. I think they'd do just as fine in that defensive sort of application, and just easier for follow-up shots. Alright, so we're going to try something, bump this up to something really it's going to hurt to shoot. Alright, should be fun. Okay, so one last round we're going to run. This would be definitely at the top side of both weight and velocity and just all around. Oh my god! This is going to be, once again, a underweight, so guaranteed to be ouch. This one is a 220 grain hard cast at 1200 feet per second, so this is notably heavy at the specified velocities for these rounds. I fired these before through my G40, and it is. Basically, that's it, man. That's just, it is actually a front heavy bullet. I mean, that's a heavy front end. So yeah, it's going to produce a lot of smoke. I can guarantee it. Try not to breathe it in. It's going to make, if I do end up hitting my steel, which is questionable at this point, it's going to rain. It's going to make that steel hurt. It's going to make my wrist hurt because I know it's that would make a great bear defense. Any kind of wild animal, even a moose, but definitely bear. Even if they're grizzly, but definitely in lower 48. And we have 15 in the mag, 1 in the chamber, just because I don't know if this cycles fully loaded, because this is the way you would carry it for woods defense. So here we go. This is going to hurt. Oh my gosh. at least I hit the steel a few times. Actually not as bad as I thought. It obviously shot easier than the G40, but probably not by much. I mean, I was expecting this to be like, you know, shooting a, you know, a hard cast, full loaded Underwood 357 Magnum out of my SP-109. That hurts. This, not so bad. Actually, if anything, it hurt my finger with the trigger rubbing during the recoil. But yeah, no. And the point of aim, point of impact, heavier grain, it fell a little bit, so I had to shoot a little high. But that's to be expected. Yeah, I would trust that definitely in this gun for its intended purpose, which is outdoor woods defense. Alright, I can definitely recommend that. Well, that wraps it up for my testing. Don't really need to run any of the cheaper stuff on camera. I'll probably run that later on. I'm almost out of battery life here anyway, so that's it. The XDm 45 in 10mm. Definitely one of the best 10mm I've shot so far, and I would say this is a contender for any of you guys thinking about just getting into a standard service size, standard service size 10mm semi-auto. This would be an excellent choice. And once again, thanks for watching.